A skinny teenager wandering the streets of Athens, Greece? No food at home? No guaranteed place to sleep? Just a bag full of watches and sunglasses, hoping strangers would hand over a few euros so his family could eat that night. That kid is now a two-time NBA MVP and a world champion. But what happened next would turn this unknown kid into one of the most dominant players the NBA has ever seen.
Because I'm scared of losing all this.
We left Nigeria looking for a better life in Greece.
The dream of every father is to give your children a better education.
As an immigrant, you are nothing.
We've always been outsiders.
Living here was basically illegal.
We had to live in fear.
I always try to protect my family. You want the best for your brothers.
This is the story of Giannis Antetokounmpo. To understand how remarkable this story is, you have to go back to the beginning. And I mean the real beginning. Giannis's parents, Charles and Veronica, made one of the hardest decisions a parent can ever make. They packed up everything they had in Nigeria and moved to Greece searching for something better, a chance, an opportunity, the kind of life they couldn't find back home. But Greece didn't exactly welcome them with open arms. The family was undocumented. That meant no work permits, no legal protection, no safety net of any kind. They were essentially invisible to the system, and that invisibility came with a brutal price. They crammed into a tiny apartment in one of Athens' roughest neighborhoods. Money was so tight that some nights dinner simply didn't exist. Charles and Veronica did everything they could, selling handmade goods, taking whatever odd jobs they could find without getting caught by authorities. But it still wasn't enough. So the kids had to help. Every single morning, young Giannis and his brothers would hit the streets of Athens with bags stuffed full of watches, sunglasses, and whatever small goods they could carry. They'd approach tourists. They'd weave through markets. They'd do whatever it took to make a sale. And the worst part? If the police showed up, they had to run, not walk. Run. Because getting caught meant serious consequences for a family that couldn't afford any more problems. Imagine being 12 years old and your daily routine includes sprinting from authorities just to survive. That was Giannis's childhood. That was his normal. But here's the thing about Giannis that you need to understand from the jump. Even then, even in the middle of all that chaos and poverty, something burned inside of him. A quiet, stubborn, relentless drive that refused to let his circumstances define his ceiling. He just hadn't found his outlet yet. Giannis didn't grow up dreaming of the NBA. He barely even knew what the NBA was. Basketball found him late, way later than most of the guys he'd eventually share a court with. He was around 13 when a local youth coach named Spiros Valiniadis spotted him near a gym in Athens. What caught Spiros' eye wasn't skill. Giannis had almost none at that point. What caught his eye were those arms, those impossibly long arms attached to this rail-thin kid who moved with a kind of awkward grace that you couldn't quite explain, but you absolutely couldn't ignore. Spiros pulled him in and handed him a basketball, and Giannis was hooked. He threw himself into it with everything he had, and I mean everything. He had no fancy training facility, no personal coach, no resources, just a ball, a court, and a hunger that went way deeper than basketball. He was chasing something bigger than a sport. He was chasing a way out, but things were about to get harder before they got better. As Giannis's basketball was developing, his family's situation was getting more desperate. The threat of deportation hung over them every single day. His father's health was beginning to decline. There were moments where the family genuinely didn't know what the next week would look like, let alone the next year. Giannis kept playing. Word started to spread quietly in the Greek basketball community about this lanky kid from Athens who was getting better at a pace nobody had seen before. He joined Philathletikos, a small club team with minimal resources, and started playing in the lower divisions of Greek basketball. He wasn't dominating yet. He was still raw, still learning the fundamentals that most players his age had been drilling since they were 8 years old. But the growth curve? It was unlike anything his coaches had ever witnessed. Every week he was better. Every month he looked like a completely different player. His body was starting to catch up to those long arms, and what was emerging was something that genuinely scared defenders. A 7-foot wingspan on a kid who could handle the ball like a guard and run the floor like a gazelle. NBA scouts started paying attention. In 2013, Giannis entered the NBA draft. And let me paint you a picture of just how much of an unknown he was. He had played in the lower divisions of Greek basketball, a league most hardcore NBA fans had never heard of. He had almost no international exposure, no highlight reel that was making rounds on YouTube, no name recognition outside of a tiny circle of scouts who had quietly been watching him. Most mock drafts barely mentioned him. The night of the draft, Giannis sat there with his family. The same family that used to run from police in Athens. The same brothers who sold watches on street corners. His mother, Veronica, who had sacrificed everything so her sons could have a shot at something real. Pick after pick went by.
With the 15th pick in the 2013 NBA Draft, the Milwaukee Bucks select Giannis Antetokounmpo from Athens, Greece. He last played for Athleticos in Greece.
His mother burst into tears. His brothers couldn't believe it. And Giannis? He sat there with this wide, almost disbelieving smile. Like part of him still couldn't process that this was actually real. But nobody, and I mean nobody, understood what they had just drafted. Giannis arrived in Milwaukee and the culture shock hit him immediately. He barely spoke English. He was 18 years old, thousands of miles from his family, in a city he'd never visited, trying to navigate a league filled with players who had been preparing for this moment their entire lives. His first few games? Rough. Really rough. He was 19 years old playing against grown men who had years of NBA experience. He was getting pushed around. He was making mistakes. He was learning the pace of the game in real time on the biggest stage possible. Some people started to quietly wonder if the Bucks had made a mistake. But here's what those people didn't see. They didn't see Giannis after practice. They didn't see him staying in the gym long after everyone else had gone home. They didn't see him watching film, asking questions, absorbing everything like a sponge because he understood something most young players take years to learn. This opportunity was not guaranteed to last, and he was not going to waste it. He thought about those streets in Athens. He thought about his brothers carrying those bags of watches. He thought about his mother's face the night his name was called. And he got back to work. What happened over the next few years was one of the most jaw-dropping development stories the NBA had ever seen. Season by season, Giannis transformed. The skinny kid from Athens started adding muscle. His handle got tighter. His footwork improved. His basketball IQ, already impressive, reached a level that made coaches genuinely shake their heads in disbelief. By year 3, he was an all-star. By year 5, the entire league was talking about him differently. Not as a talented young player with potential, as a problem, a force of nature, something defenses had no real answer for. He could do things on a basketball court that had simply never been done before. He could start a drive from the three-point line and be at the rim in 2 steps. 2 steps. He was winning Defensive Player of the Year awards. He was carrying the Milwaukee Bucks, one of the league's smaller markets, into genuine playoff contention. And that's when everything changed. In 2019, Giannis won his first MVP award. Then he won it again in 2020, back-to-back. The kid who learned basketball at 13, the kid who sold watches on the streets of Athens to survive, the most valuable player in the entire NBA twice. But even with all of that, something was still missing, a championship. And in 2021, Giannis made sure that nobody would ever be able to say his legacy wasn't complete.
I was 18 when I came here. Fell in love with the city. It's a city that loves basketball. It's my home. And it's a place that I want to be.
Hey, let's go get the big trophy now.
The Bucks made it to the NBA Finals against the Phoenix Suns. And through the first 2 games, Milwaukee was in trouble. They dropped both games at home and the entire basketball world was ready to count them out. But nobody saw what was coming. Giannis had shown up to that series carrying something extra. You could see it in his eyes. This wasn't just a basketball series to him. This was the culmination of every single hard moment his family had ever lived through. Every night with no food. Every morning running from police. Every doubt anyone had ever thrown at him. He was not losing this series. Game after game, he was everywhere. Blocking shots, attacking the rim, doing things that made broadcasters run out of words to describe what they were watching. And then came Game 6. With the Bucks on the verge of closing out the championship, Giannis delivered one of the greatest individual performances in NBA Finals history. 50 points, 14 rebounds, 5 blocks, in a must-win championship game. At 26 years old, when that final buzzer sounded and the Milwaukee Bucks were NBA champions,
puts up the one-hander, shot is good, does it again! 50 points. Only the 7th player in the history of the finals to have a 50-point game. And that'll do it. It's over. The Bucks have done it. The long wait has ended. After a half-century, the Milwaukee Bucks are NBA champions once again.
Giannis dropped to his knees at center court. He wasn't performing for the cameras. He wasn't thinking about the trophy or the celebration. He was thinking about his family. He was thinking about his father, Charles, who had passed away in 2017 and never got to see this moment. He was thinking about his mother, Veronica, who had crossed an ocean with nothing and somehow raised a champion. He was thinking about those streets in Athens and that bag of watches and that version of himself who couldn't have imagined in his wildest dreams that life could look like this. When he grabbed that finals MVP trophy, through tears, he said something that stopped everyone cold. He said the night he was drafted, he promised his family he would take care of them. And he had done it. Here's what the story of Giannis Antetokounmpo really teaches us. It's not a story about basketball. It's a story about what happens when circumstance tries to set a ceiling on your life, and you refuse to acknowledge that ceiling exists. It's a story about a family that had every reason to give up and somehow found a way to keep going. It's a story about a teenager with no resources, no platform, and no guarantee of anything who quietly decided that none of that mattered. Most people in Giannis's position never get out, and nobody would have blamed him if he hadn't. But he kept going, through the poverty, through the streets, through the culture shock and the rough early seasons and the doubt and the losses and every single obstacle the world placed in front of him. He kept going. And the next time someone tells you your dreams are too big, or your start was too hard, or the odds are too stacked against you, remember that somewhere out there is a kid selling watches on a street corner in Athens, and he became the best basketball player on the planet. And if that doesn't inspire you, I don't know what will. If this story hit different, drop a comment below. Tell me what part got you the most. I read every single one. Smash that like button, subscribe if you're new, and go watch our last video right here. I'll see you in the next one.